I was hanging out with my friend and he started vomiting, which is obviously a little bit alarming. Yeah. So we were like, 911, hey girl, like come over. And they were just like, hey bud, I'm gonna be honest with you. You should probably call an Uber because the ambulance ride is going to be $3,000. Yeah.
No, that is
with insurance.
That is so crazy. I've actually had a lot of friends experience the literal exact same thing.
I just don't understand how older generations look at things like this. Like, okay, they can't afford homes. They're in crippling debt for their entire lives. You know, they would rather Uber than take an ambulance when they need immediate medical attention. But it's probably the Starbucks coffee, honestly.
I know.
Like maybe if they just saved an extra $5 a week.
But if you look at the facts right now, we are working more hours for less money than literally any other generation. So I'm like, actually don't say that.
Oh, 100%. Like, we are far more productive than previous generations. We are more employed. Yeah. We are more educated than previous generations. Yeah. And that's not computing.
And to that point, to be called lazy by the generation whose entire goal is to make passive income off being landlords on rental properties, why are they entitled to income that nobody else is entitled to? I can't with that.
Well, and that's the thing too, especially because these older generations hoard so much wealth. They're able to do things like in the middle of an economic crisis, they can just go buy a home and make some extra money. So we'll exit these economic crises and they will be better off, and then we'll still be struggling.
No, I feel like that was the darkest part of the pandemic for me, is just realizing how much additional wealth the billionaires and everybody who was like the ultra wealthy were making, while everybody else was like suffering and quite literally dying. Home ownership alone gives me so much anxiety. I feel like I accepted long ago that I'll probably never own a home. And like that actually kind of freaks me out. Like it's really hard to think about. My parents like bought this house. We've lived in our house for 30 years. They bought it like back in the 90s.
No, I feel like, especially when we were kids growing up, like a big marker of success was like, oh, buying my first home at like probably like late 20s, early 30s. And now I feel like the marker of success is like, I can actually afford rent by myself. I'm not sharing a bedroom or sharing an apartment in like my mid 20s, which is so crazy.
And it's so weird what that does to you psychologically. Like,
I feel like when I was younger, I used to like tell my mom like, I'm never having kids, because I just wanted to be like that girl, you know?
Same.
But now I'm like, I can't have kids. I'm not going to be able to have a house. I feel like I won't be able to support myself and like a family. My friend just got a dog and it stresses me out thinking about the cost. I'm like, what if she has to go to the vet? Imagine having like a whole human being.
So we can really only speak to our own personal experiences on these issues. And so we wanted to contextualize this with the perspective of somebody who grew up witnessing the best time for economic mobility in the United States, if you're a white man. And that is former Secretary of Labor
and Gen Z icon, Robert Reich.
Well, I have to turn my head back to the 20th century.
I was having this conversation about money and mortgages and housing with my friend the other day, who's she's actually closer to my daughter's age than mine, and she was talking about the argument she has with her dad about the fact that, you know, her generation can't cancel Netflix to get a house, and we know that that's not going to really make an enormous amount of difference. And I said, as an illustration for her dad, she should explain to him that when I was 25 years old, I was earning £25,000, and that is probably not that different to what a 25-year-old might be earning today in the sort of job that I had at the time, right? And I saved up a deposit of £5,000 over 3 years, and I bought my first flat, and that flat was worth £89,000, and it was basically then a mortgage for about 3 times my salary roughly that I was looking for. My mum and dad gave me a bit of money too, and not only is the salary I was earning then about what I would be earning now at the same age, I reckon, but that flat would now be worth about 800 or 900 grand if I'd hung on to it, because that's what you'd have to pay for it. So that is basically what you should explain to your boomer and Gen X relations. However, it should also be said on the boomer and Gen X side, we did not have the thing to pay for, the things that you have to pay for, which you see as like effectively human rights, and we would have seen as massive luxuries. So we would never ever have bought a takeaway coffee. We would hardly ever have had a takeaway. A meal out was once every 6 months. We wouldn't have had a gym membership. We wouldn't have had a car until we could really afford it, and we'd had a beat up old car to start with. There was no Netflix, and every time we got out of bed in the morning it was fucking freezing because there was no central heating really to speak of, and you didn't have it on unless it was absolutely freezing. So there was a definitely a sense of much more make do and mend. My mum and dad never had any furniture when they moved in. They got everything given to them second hand, and so there's a sense now that we should have those things. However, the problem is now that with everybody having the same access to the same amount of same things, we feel like we're really missing out if we don't get those things. We feel like we should have them. So there's a sense of justice about the fact we should have a Netflix subscription, we should have a gym membership, or whatever else it may be. So however, even if we got rid of all of those things, we still wouldn't be able to save enough to afford a flat unless we're prepared to buy one in an area which is less expensive and rent that out. But anyway, that's just a bit of a balanced sort of view. Bye.
Never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. All that
Oh my god. I'm just gonna say this for our current generation. We have it so much easier than the boomers did. We're just too lazy. We don't work enough. We don't work hard enough. Yet the cost of living keeps going up and the wages stay the same. Look, I just want to grow up to actually be a father and to have a family. That's basically the American dream. To have a sustainable life. We don't want to have to worry about money for the rest of our life. But with retirement options slowly becoming less and less available, it's hard to do now. I'm sitting here right now worrying about where I'll be in 50 years. I just can't afford the national home average. Who can? $400,000. Like if you agree if Gen Z don't work hard enough.
Sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house. We busted our behinds. We had to bust our behinds.
Whoopi, here is the problem.
Make sure y'all go watch that creators video before you watch this one. But anyway, I am sick of this shit. The baby boomers and people in that era had so much to say about Gen Z and all of this and that. Y'all are quick to call us lazy, and I'm tired of it. Let's get into some facts. For these people saying we lazy, y'all living off y'all SSI, y'all's retirement, y'all's pension. We ain't got that shit yet, and still barely making it for some of us. Back in the day, y'all could go get a house for $50,000, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Try that shit now. Try it now, baby. This minimum 200,000, no matter where you at in the U.S. Have y'all seen how much eggs is, how much milk is, how much bread is, how much meat is? That it wasn't even half that price for y'all growing up back in the day. Let's talk about it. And if we being honest, the world like this because of y'all. That's a whole nother video. Y'all did this shit before we even was a thought, before we even was born, if we being honest. Y'all work all these hours, y'all do all this, y'all been at the job for 30 years. What's the shit to show for it? The people in my generation ain't going for that shit. We just not. Have you ever heard of work smarter, not harder? Work smarter, not harder. And at the end of the day, I'm going to leave y'all with this. If the roles was reversed, we would make it back then because we had to go through the trenches right now with these prices. Y'all wouldn't make it if y'all was us. Period, point blank.